Okay, so let's get started. This is Dr. James, and so welcome to Dr. James, and he is of the Alberta Health Institute. Today, he's going to be sharing with us different methods and thought patterns that could potentially help with the treatment of neuropathy via neuropathic means. Dr. James is a naturopathic doctor in Calgary, Alberta here. He graduated from the University of Calgary in 2005 with a biological science degree with a minor in psychology. Then moved to the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, where he graduated in 2009. And he has been practicing ever since then. He sat on the board of the College of Naturopathic Doctors as the complaints chair. When I read that, I thought, oh, that was probably not the most fun job. But anyway, sorry, the complaints chair from 2011 to 2015, and currently sits as a member of the Hearing Tribunal. He has helped people with fatigue, pain, hormone imbalances, and of course, neuropathy. He utilizes an assortment of alternative modalities in his treatments to provide the best care to his patients. So welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me to speak today. So I'm going to just share my screen here. And so we can get started. So this lecture is just different approaches, different ways of thinking about your healthcare and how it relates to neuropathy and how we can help out with that. So just to give you a brief overview, this is our team at the Alberta Health Institute. I myself am Dr. James, and here's my team. So I've been practicing 11 years. However, the team itself actually has been practicing around more like 20 years. So I joined them after about 10 years of what they've been practicing. And then I became partner not too long after that. So we are an integrative healthcare clinic. We have 2 acupuncturists, a massage therapist, chiropractor, and our holistic nutritionist at the clinic. Our setup is very much a cozy one. So we try to make it very family feel and give that sensation at the clinic so everyone's very comfortable. And we are very much under the belief that we are stronger together. So we work very much as a team, as well as I try to work with other healthcare practitioners that are out there. So that's just a little bit about us and the team at the Alberta Health Institute. Just before I go there, just to give you a brief thing about myself as well, I actually suffered from tremors before when I was younger. And so definitely know a little bit more focus on neuropathies and stuff like that. And was able to get rid of them. And so we will kind of discuss which one it was, but it was kind of one of the things that did affect me when I was in my younger life. All right, so in this webinar, I wanted to make sure that we understood the foundations first. So trying to help everyone understand how the body works. Understanding that will help us understand why disease hits us and why healing can actually take a while to do so. Generally, there are 4 levels of disease. However, we don't really notice it until it becomes a chronic issue, where that was stage 3 or 4. Okay, so that's when it hits us, is usually. I could probably spend the whole lecture talking about that, but I will save that for another day. So our body, very, very important thing, very resilient. So I wanted to definitely start talking about homeostasis. So the homeostasis is the body's ability to keep things as comfortable and as stable as possible. So saying that, what your body does when things change is try to offset that as much as possible without you feeling a thing. Keeps your body as comfortable as it can. So you think about Calgary. Calgary weather changes pretty much every minute, every hour of the day. And so your body has to actually modify it so that your body's comfortable throughout. Try to keep it as stable as possible, but that requires energy. Same thing, if you get a little bit of dirt, you get a little bit of alcohol, you may not feel that right away because your body will try to offset that as much as possible. If you go overboard, however, this is when things happen and things kind of break apart. and that's where we get disease. Okay. So our nervous system, right? Our communication hub for the body. It's our way that the body talks to each other. So on the left side of the screen there is just a breakdown of what the end of the nervous system looks like. The right side is basically your spine and all the things that your body can help work, right? Basically, if your body is not talking to each other, then are you able to lift up your arm? Are you really, really able to feel? Imagine this cup. Are you able to do that if anything is damaged in those areas? So you remember this game of telephone? How many times did you play that game where the first message matched the end message? Probably not too often. Not that when I played it rarely ever happened, once or twice. Or you even think about these, right? Our lovely cell phones. What if the reception is not so good, right? Are you getting that message? So your body, your nervous system acts like that communication hub. If it's not working properly, are you getting all the messages? Is your body getting all those messages? Your nervous system is a little bit more efficient than the game of telephone, though. Okay, so what happens when it's cut or damaged, right? Then we're going to get neuropathy. So neuropathy in itself, the definition of it is disruption, damage, or dysfunction of nerves resulting in numbness, tingling, muscle weakness, pain, or just normal bodily functions. So here are some of the warning signs, right? So easiest one most of us know about is the pain, tingling, weakness, numbness, loss of motion, tremors when I experience that. But the less common ones that we may not always pay attention to, because there's always other things that may be interfering with that, is irregular heartbeats, that feeling of fatigue, just something is feeling just a bit off. You're just not feeling right and you're not sure why. Indigestion, we can see that quite often, and obviously our mental health disorders. So anxieties, depressions, and the low levels relating to that. So those are a couple of signs that you may be watching for to see if there's any neuropathy that may be occurring. Some of the diseases, and these are a short list of that. Diabetes is one of the biggest ones, can definitely cause neuropathy in the peripheries for sure. Multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré, strokes. We do a lot of work with stroke patients who've lost the ability to move. Carpal tunnel, disc herniations, sprains and strains, and sometimes surgeries too. I've seen that a couple times with patients too, where some of the surgeries may cause some neuropathies that we need to offset. So naturopathic medicine, my field. I can tell you in 11 years, we still don't have this definition down, but this is probably the best way to explain it. So it's using different alternative methods in helping treating healthcare conditions. The idea is they optimize the body's innate ability to heal itself, and by doing so, we help this by using natural means, vitamins, herbals, acupuncture, homeopathy, diet, lifestyle changes, hydrotherapy. There are so many more that we can dive into as well, but these are the main ones that we try to deal with the most. So potential causes that we believe may be also causing some of the neuropathies that exist. The main ones that I listed earlier from the other slide there, but also heavy metals, environmental. So heavy metals like aluminum and mercury, those can definitely cause lead, very prevalent in our society and in our environment, and those can definitely attack the nerves. Environmental toxicities, oils, gas, pollution, plastics can also cause some of these things, and they bind. We'll kind of discuss some of that too in there, but definitely can play a role. Alcohol, sugars, artificial sweeteners, also poor diet, malnourishment. I can tell you, our diets are not the best in North America, and we definitely do not get enough nutrients in our system. There's many reasons why that's the case, and we'll kind of go through it. But I can tell you, most patients that come into my office are pretty malnourished. And stress levels. Stress levels, very, very huge in North America. We don't know how to rest and relax. I know in UC, they actually had a class designed for students to teach them how to relax. So yeah, we don't really do that. We're always on the go. And now with a lot of the wireless stuff, wireless radiation, especially now with the 5G, it can play a role on our nervous system. So remember this slide? It's going to become very, very important in this next little bit in describing how conditions work and how that can impede some body functions. So the pinched nerve, probably the easiest one, most common that we know of. So saying that, discs. This is probably the one that most people see when they go see their medical doctor, when they're getting shoulder pains, neck pains, numbness, all that stuff. You have a pinched nerve that's from a disc that's protruding into the nerve base and then pinching it off, causing some issues. The most common one is usually called thoracic outlet syndrome. It is usually around here. That gets pinched off and it causes issues in the arms and numbness and frozen shoulder and all that fun stuff there. Carpal tunnel, so muscles, tendons, and ligaments. That's an image of carpal tunnel. So what happens is when the nerve is pinched up in the carpal tunnel area and in your arm, mainly this is what happens, is it actually pinches off the nerve and then leads to carpal tunnel. Computer work causes a lot of that, mousing and cell phones, iPads, those items there. And we don't really exercise our wrists and joints too much in that area. So those muscles get really, really tight and cause those problems. Diabetes, heavy metals, artificial sugars. So remember this picture here. At the end of these ones are all receptors that help bind to trigger off the signal to go to the body and signal things. What happens is, so with diabetes, namely, which is the sugars, it will bind to these ends and damage the endings. Heavy metals will also fit according to the receptors here and then block them off so you don't get the signals all the time. Artificials also do that. So they all fit to the endings here and block it off. So what happens is the nerve can no longer receive messages in that sense. And then the body itself is not getting the full message. The other part is when it comes, especially with heavy metals, what happens is your body may notice that as something that is foreign, because it is, and will attack it. So now we're going to get some damage in that area as well, which leads to some of these things. So alcohol, sugars, environmental toxins. What happens is they also bind to those receptor sites, but instead of just kind of blocking it, they may full on damage it and things don't work properly. And so when the damage happens, then again, with the nerve being damaged, you're going to get symptomology where you're not feeling things. You're just feeling a little bit tired. Things are achy and you're not sure why. And the normal conventional medical system can't tell you why, because all your x-rays show normal. All your scans show normal. MRIs show normal. CT scans show normal. Blood work shows normal because they're already in your tissue. And so those things will come up and you won't see them. Poor diet. So very similar to the last one where sugars and having a poor diet, it creates a very acidic environment. And so if you leave something in an acidic environment for too long, what happens? It gets decayed, it breaks down, and then all of a sudden things damage, and now the receptor sites are not working properly. So any triggers any signals that might be coming now no longer bind. And one of the biggest things is poor diet. Poor diets are generally acidic in nature, and so when it gets into your system, it becomes acidic in itself.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So is that part of the contribution why sugar is so bad? I always thought sugar caused inflammation, which puts pressure onto the nerves, which is why it would cause damage. But is the sugar in the bloodstream around those nerves also causing some degradation?
Yeah. So what happens is because of the sugar in itself, so you're getting, again, you're absolutely right. So it does cause the inflammation. Inflammation in itself is acidic. And so because of that acidity, it will cause some of the degradation as well. It also will bind to sites. And so again, that binding will be there too. So malnourishment. So along with poor diet, where you're not getting the nutrients necessary, are you getting enough to rebuild your system? It is basically, the example I use is this. If you're trying to repair your home after a storm and things are broken, but I don't give you any wood, brick, mortar, nail, screws, any of the materials required to fix your home, what are you going to do? You're going to have to take it from other places of your home to repair the spaces that are damaged. Your body is no different to that. And now with our environment being low in nutrient value, we're just not getting enough. And so we can see time and time again that people are malnourished. The other part is that people, their guts are very inflamed, which we will talk about. So inflammation in the gut will lead to malabsorption, and you will not get all the nutrients necessary. So then again, where are you going to get the nutrients to repair your body? So strokes, I just threw this in last minute actually. In North America, we have a nasty habit of being on the go. We actually don't know how to rest and relax. And so our nervous system is constantly stimulated all the time. And if you just think about just wear and tear over time with very little nutrients to repair with, it is only going to damage the nervous system even more so. The other part is too, adrenaline in itself is very acidic. And so again, you're hitting that acidic environment that will also damage the nervous system. So very, very important that we try to rest and relax as much as we can. And now, so a newer thing in our world is our EMFs, right? So a lot of the radiation that's coming around, the radiation, we've noticed that it does play a role in people. The people get the headaches, they feel tired, and actually quite stimulated. And in some cases, it can lead to anxieties just because your body doesn't have rest, and people who get restlessness. So insomnia, a big part of it. They did a study with kids, actually somewhere in the countryside, not too far from here, where one school had wireless and one school that did not. And the kids that had the wireless ended up being more anxious, ended up having more ADD, and just being a little bit more disruptive versus those kids that were in a school that didn't. And the reason being is because the wireless was just constantly stimulating the nervous system, and they just had to work it out and try to ease that tension that's being occurred in their body. They just didn't know how to deal with it. And so that's what was happening. And then again, just faster wear and tear with very little to repair with. So what can be done? These are only a few things that can be done. Of course, there's a lot more. So I decided to focus on one of the bigger points in our profession and the ones that I actually do as well in my practice. So detoxification, very, very important. Chelation, liver cleanses, nerve cleanse. There's a couple more cleanses that I would probably incorporate in there too. Acupuncture, nutrient support, herbs, hydrotherapy, soft tissue manipulation, and joint manipulations, which we'll go through each. So detoxification. Detoxification, cleansing, and drainage. All they're different things, but in this case and in this seminar or webinar, I will be just kind of using them all in one. And so in this case, they will just mean the same thing, but they are very different processes in the body. So our biggest filters are our liver, kidneys, and lungs, okay? So what happens when something gets clogged, right? What happens when the pipes are clogged in your household? Things get backed up, and when things get backed up, this causes the inability of your body to get rid of toxins, thusly more chances for them to get to the tissues and cause more damage. And they end up usually in muscles, joints, fat cells, and of course your nervous system, and then it causes problems that way. We can clean the nervous system. There's definitely herbs and things that we do to help clean the nervous system. Mainly my focus is we start with the liver, we start with the main ones first, then we will go to the nervous system afterwards. The reason being, which what happens is, if the main ones are clogged, then cleaning the little ones, the secondary ones, won't mean anything because the primary elimination emunctories are blocked, right? So you won't be able to get rid of it. So it's like throwing out the garbage in your home. into the main building, but you can't throw it out of the house. You're still going to have garbage in the home. So very much the same scenario. Like I said, we'll kind of discuss certain things that can be helpful in helping that clean out your system that way.
Dr. James, we have a couple of questions coming in.
Sure.
What kind of detox protocol would you do for someone damaged by the COVID vaccine and they developed peripheral neuropathy or made their peripheral neuropathy worse?
Okay. So I forgot to mention this at the beginning, actually. So unfortunately, anything COVID related, I can't comment in a public setting based on my purview of the regulatory body. However, any of those questions that relate to COVID and you have, you're more than welcome to contact me directly and I will answer those questions. Yeah, there's ways that can be done, but unfortunately I can't speak to that at this time.
So the other question we have is regarding the B12 and neuropathy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If the level is at about 100, what kind of nerve damage, if any, could a person expect to take place? And to what extent is this damage irreversible? Is there some period, a number of weeks, months, years after tingling and pain onset that one could reverse damage from low B12 in its entirety?
So we'll go through B12 in a bit, but so there's no maximum in B12, realistically. We've never noticed that, so that's one thing. Time frame wise, it's very different for everyone. And so the hard part is in cleansing the body, I won't know things until how you respond to the body, because there's always order or process, right? So if there is, if your liver and your kidneys are really, really clogged, and we clean that out, and then we're able to clean out the nervous system, it can be very short. It can be 6 months to a year, or it can take a very long time. Each case is quite different in that sense. So again, that is probably a discussion in the appointment. And again, I can definitely answer that later on today. Any other questions at this moment?
No, that was it for now.
Okay. But yes, it is. Things are able to be healed and things can be repaired. You just got to give me the time to do so. So there's really timeframes that are doable. And we know that nerves can be regenerated. So that's the other part. So just remember that.
And obviously there are some that cannot.
Right. Yeah.
Mine is genetic and that can't really be repaired. But
absolutely. Yeah. So genetic factors is definitely a part of the issues where we may not be able to. But again, body's resilient. So it learns certain backup systems and stuff like that. Will you get full ability back? Maybe not, but definitely better results than before. Acupuncture. One of the biggest things I actually started with was acupuncture. So what acupuncture does is stimulate the nerves to repair the flow. So it has a couple of functions: increases circulation, stimulates the nerves, relax the muscles. In doing so, and one particular type of acupuncture I do is scalp acupuncture. I use it on my stroke patients. It was actually designed for veterans who lost limbs and they still get phantom pain. And so sometimes the brain just needs a reset. Sometimes it needs a reboot because the brain does so much stuff, gets carried away, and doesn't always recognize that something is removed or something is working properly again. So acupuncture is one of the ways that we can use to help stimulate the brain as well as stimulate the nervous systems in the area to help repair and recovering the joints and maintaining them actually. So nutritional support. So the person asked about B12. B vitamins, very, very important for nervous support. One of the main vitamins for that support, as I mentioned, B vitamins is one of the vitamins you actually can't go overboard with, except for some of the newer ones that have come out recently, like B17.
And B6 is problematic because it can be neurotoxic, correct?
Over time. That's why you still would want to make sure you're seeing a practitioner with any of these things for sure. Because even, yeah, if you get what happens with B6, especially if you go overboard, your body will detox too quickly, and then you'll feel nauseous and not feel so well. Same thing with B3. If you're doing niacin, especially the flushes, you can definitely go overboard. We've had people faint with the niacin as well. And if you take too much, it can also cause some retina detachment. So definitely want to be cautious with some of that. Magnesium, super, super important vitamin as well, or mineral, sorry. One that is no longer in our soils, but it helps brains and muscles relax. It's also a cofactor for many other functionalities and processes. So you want to make sure that you're getting your magnesium. We hear a lot about calcium, but you think about the strength of bone and what the structure of bone is like. It's pretty solid. So if you're getting a lot of calcium, it will make things stiff. Magnesium is the counterpart to that, right? So the magnesium will help muscles relax, calm things down, help things move. So that is definitely one of the things that is important, and we just don't get enough. Taurine mainly just opens up blood vessels, and so it just helps with the absorption of a lot of nutrients a lot better and easier. CoQ10, a lot of work has gone to CoQ10, especially with heart health mainly, but we're noticing now it's an antioxidant and really, really good for just energy, right? Energy is so, so important. So you now have the energy to repair, even just cope with everyday life. So definitely important for that. Alpha lipoic acid, known to actually repair nerve damage, help with insulin regulation. So again, those who are diabetic, this will help kind of offset some of the the long-term effects of diabetes, and is an anti-inflammatory, but also really, really useful from a cancer standpoint as well. And the omega-3s. Omega-3s, so, so important, and we just don't get enough. Great for joints as well, but even nerve damage, we've seen it work well for patients who have mental health disorders, anxieties, depression, very, very good like that. Helps muscles relax, and a really, really good anti-inflammatory.
So for the most part, I know we talked about B6, but none of these really have serious side effects, correct? Like I know alpha lipoic acid, and this even happened to myself. It would make you lose hair.
So yeah, because it's still an acid at that point. But again, too much of anything will actually cause problems, because that's one of the ways of your body detoxes and gets rid of excess. If anything, it actually goes through your hair. And so hair, skin, nails will tend to. So if you're getting brittle nails, that will also cause that issue.
Yeah.
Taurine, you may get some fainting spells if you get too much, because it'll open blood vessels too much. Magnesium, the easiest side effect for magnesium that you notice you'll have diarrhea. The only one that I have not seen and that has not been documented is omega-3s. There hasn't been an upper limit on omega-3s. The only catch with it is still a fat soluble vitamin. So you would have to be making sure your gallbladder is working properly. Those who do not have a gallbladder will not be able to break down the omega-3s so much. And then again, you will be in the bathroom quite a bit.
So we had a question about the difference between ALA, so alpha lipoic acid, and the RALA.
It's configuration mainly, and how it binds to the body. The R is the one that seems to be more, in research, I believe, the more receptive version. So your body is able just to absorb it a little bit better.
That's my understanding too. So yeah, the RALA is the better choice if you can find it.
Yep.
I believe.
Yeah. Herbs. So one of my favorite herbs now that I'm using quite a bit of, St. John's wort, mainly used for antidepressant. Actually, I've noticed it more for not antidepressive states, but mainly just for mood disorders in general. There's a hormonal connection to it now that we've noticed a little bit more, especially when it comes to melatonin, or sleep hormone. But again, that's not the lecture for today, but definitely useful for that. That one you can definitely overdose. So you definitely want a professional working with you on that. You do not want to take that on your own. You can overdo it, and it can cause major issues. But that was all acts like a nervine, as well as anxiolytic. Anxiolytic meaning just relaxant, right? Cannabis. Sorry.
All right, I know I keep interrupting.
No, it's okay.
I don't know what a nervine is.
A nervine is just a tonic for the nerves. So it helps calm the nerves down, and it's just a nerve support.
Okay.
Yeah. Cannabis. One of our newest things that have become legal in our country, does have an effect. Again, taking too much can cause some concerns, mainly paranoia. If you get too much cannabis in your system, it actually can lead to paranoia. But overall, it does have a relaxing effect. It acts like a sedative. There is anti-inflammatory effects to it, and we've seen it help with some anxieties for sure in studies. Passion flower, again, a nervine, just helps calm things down, helps calm down anxieties, and has a subtle pain, reduction in pain, so it helps with pain management a little bit. Lion's mane mushroom, if you've noticed more in health food stores, we're getting these wonderful mushroom coffees that exist, quite bitter. But so the lion's mane one helps stimulate nerve regeneration. Kava, one of the ones that is a muscle relaxant, used not so often anymore. At one point, it was actually illegal in this country. They brought it back probably now 5 or 6 years ago, where they were seeing some of the benefits, and again, just more helping relax those nervous systems, deal with pain, and calm people down. And my other favorite, actually, that I use a lot of is the silver linden, and that one is actually what I use for nerve cleaning, and really easy to take, very simple, and it does actually do a good job in trying to cleanse up those nervous systems.
Oh, I've never heard of kava or silver linden, so that's something new for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So from Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from B12 from animal products, is there a supplement that is not synthetic? My understanding is, I might pronounce this wrong, methylcobalamin is preferred, but it's sourced from an unnatural source.
Yeah, right now it's not the easiest to extract it, B12, and methylcobalamin is the main one. The reason being is we've noticed a lot of people have a lot of methylation issues, so they're not methylating as well, and methyl groups are what binds the body to essentially absorb some of the B12 into your system. And so unfortunately now, yeah, we're kind of hitting synthetics for some of these vitamins for sure. Yeah.
And then someone is asking about N-acetyl-L-cysteine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like oh my gosh, this is why I never went into medicine. It's like glutathione.
Yeah, glutathione, yeah.
Sorry, I just cannot pronounce stuff. But she's wondering what you're thinking about that one.
NAC, I use quite a bit of NAC in my practice. So yeah, NAC's a lot easier than pronouncing N-acetylcysteine.
Yeah.
So yeah, NAC is the precursor to glutathione. It allows, so glutathione being the natural antioxidant in your body, in your liver, that's produced by your liver. This is why we need to really focus on our liver too. So it helps actually the glutathione stay stable longer. So if your body has the NAC, then your body will be able to produce the glutathione, which will offset a lot of the toxins that are in your body and the oxidants there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Hydrotherapy, water, so important. So our body is 70% of our body is water, and so can be very useful in clearing out some of those toxins. So it's very, very important that we are hydrated. I cannot emphasize that enough, especially here in Calgary. We are a dry climate. We do not get enough water. And I'm talking just water, period. Other drinks like coffee, tea, those kinds of things may dehydrate us more. Coffee definitely will, for sure, as will tea, green teas and black teas. So making sure you're getting enough water to offset that, plus getting the water that you're supposed to drink per day is going to be very important. In the slides later on, there will be a description on how to calculate how much water you're supposed to drink. However, there is other methods that we can use water to our advantage, not just by drinking it, that will also help repair and help things move a lot better in your neuropathy. Soft tissue, probably one of the most common used methods in neuropathy, as well as just helping rest. And mainly it's just to help loosen up those muscles. If those muscles are loose, they may not pinch those nerves. It's as simple as that. And this is where actually the water plays a role too. You think of a sponge that is dry, right? How flexible is that sponge? How easy is it to bend it? What happens if you do bend it? Things tend to break, tear, those kinds of things. But if you add water to it, all of a sudden it's very flexible and it's very movable. Muscles very much the same way. When they are really dry and dehydrated, they become really, really tight and they start pinching off those nerves. So getting your massages. Plus, we do a lot of repetition, right? We do a lot of typing. We do a lot of cell phone texting, those kinds of things. Driving, cooking, relaxing those muscles. Even just being in this position, having those muscles tight can also cause numbness down the hands, fingers, toes, feet. I can't tell you how many tight calves I have seen. When loosening up those calves, all of a sudden their feet are feeling like feet again. So.
Yeah. I did have a quick question from Pat. She was asking about, is hot water okay? As opposed to like without tea, but just the hot water by itself.
Hot water is fine by itself. The key thing though with all this, and then I'll get it, is filtered. It just needs to be filtered, but hot water is perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah. I also wanted to mention with water, any kind of heat, like if you're applying heat, I've always heard that wet heat is better than dry heat for getting deeper into the tissues. Is that true, do you think?
I guess I'm not sure what that is.
Well, like when you go to the physiotherapist, for example, they always pull out their heating.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
In a damp bowl, and it actually does, to me anyway, seem to go deeper and warmer.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, damp heat so wet heat versus dry heat, absolutely. So dry heat will only be surface level generally. Damp heat will get to it. So when I do recommend, when people are doing hydrotherapy, one of the things we did in school is constitutional hydrotherapy, and we use wet towels. And so wet towels would absorb. Part of that is because the water, right? The water that will absorb in through your skin a lot easier, as well as just the moisture from the water. So you're now hydrating a lot more. So the water will act as a carrier too in that. You also think about areas that are humid compared to Calgary, right? So those who have been from Ontario will know that when that cold wind comes in from the lake, that's going to your bones. That's not coming straight to the surface. Whereas here in Calgary, it's only really surface level. Yeah, one of the lessons I learned when I was in school there, firsthand for sure. Joint manipulation. Like the beginning, our spine has connections to every organ, every muscle, every joint, tissue, everything. And so if there's a block in your spine, any alignment issues, it may impede functionality, and because that communication is not occurring. So you definitely want to make sure that your spine is in alignment to help make sure that that flow is not being impeded. That also goes with circulation too, blood flow, those kinds of things. So if you're getting that cold hands and feet, it may not only just be nerves that you're pinching off, right? You probably are pinching off circulation and blood vessels as well. So definitely one of the things you want to look for. So tips and tricks to help your body. Water, right? I mentioned this earlier. Our body is composed of 70% water. The water helps flush out the toxins, help and hydrate, keeps things nice and flexible. Key thing here is it must be flexible, or sorry, it must be filtered. The reason being, as much as Calgary water is one of the cleanest waters in the world, there's still chemicals in it. You can go to the Calgary water website and you will see there is, I think, last time I checked, about 17 different chemicals in the system still. And that will impede body. You can even see it. Calgary water is still hard, and we have the chloride as well. Even though the chloride may not affect our nerves directly, it does affect our thyroid. And so there is concerns there, as well as the calcium that is in there. So unless you're drinking, I know medical doctors do tell their patients to boil the water. Unless the laws of physics have changed, the calcium is still going to be in there. And so then that will calcify the joints and stuff like that too. It may get rid of the chloride, some of it, but won't get rid of all the other chemicals involved. So very important in water, and especially in detoxing.
Okay, and another question. We don't usually get this many questions, to be honest.
No.
Could you speak of those who, could you speak to those of us who have been living very sedentary lifestyle and not sweating much at all? What kind of issues may occur in the nerve and or the lymphatic system that would further clog? Would doing infrared sauna not be appropriate for those persons? Or would it be appropriate, I guess?
So I'm a big advocate of infrared saunas. It does help move things a lot. Those who are sedentary, even just movement of arms and legs, even just in your chair, will help things go. It's sort of that adage where if you lose it if you don't use it kind of scenario, right? So in this case, we want people to start. And then really, you have to start somewhere. And it doesn't have to be big. Again, jumping the gun a little bit. One of the things that is going to be recommended is I just want people to move for a minute or two. We have this idea that we have to move for 20, 30 minutes of exercise per day after sitting for 8 hours a day. That doesn't change that you sat down for 8 hours a day, right? So the rule of thumb for myself is that if you get up every hour and move for a minute or two, that is actually more beneficial to your body than actually sitting for 8 hours and then working out for 2 hours. There was another part to that question that I'm missing. Sweating. So sweating is important for sure. It is just one of the ways your body is able to eliminate toxins that much faster, especially if your lymphatics are clogged, those kinds of things. I still recommend that if your lymphatics are clogged, there's a method that's going to be listed up ahead that will help with lymphatic system movement. But dry skin brushing is a really good way to get your lymphatics moving. And that's very simple. But sweating, I know patients who don't sweat. It just means either you're not hydrated enough and your body's trying to retain the water, or two, you're not reaching a level where your body's overheating and cooling it down. Sometimes there are genetic factors that may prevent people from sweating. It's not too common, but I've seen cases where that's been the case. Okay. Any other questions right now?
No.
Okay. Cleaning materials. So these wonderful things that we use to clean our households. Aluminum foil, we know, and with many studies, causes plaques and causes plaques in the brain. So things like Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, those are all things that can be related to aluminum foil. We've seen that time and time again. So my recommendation is using glass as much as possible, and using natural cleaning solutions as possible too. I get it. Sometimes some of those stains, some of those things are really hard to remove with natural products. Natural products are not generally strong enough to get rid of them. So there are times where we have to use the harder stuff. All the more important that detoxing, cleansing, and drainage are involved. In my case, when I had my tremors, mine was a mercury toxicity that I found out much later. And it actually came from my fillings. So when I was a little kid, I had the amalgam fillings. And so the amalgams were usually made out of mercury. That mercury went into my tissues, went into my nerves, bound them up, and then started stimulating my nervous system all the time. And that can actually act like Parkinson's. And so, yeah.
So I know what I do is I use natural cleaners most of the time, but I still have the other stuff. So maybe every third or fourth or fifth time I'll use the harder stuff, just cleaned, right?
Yeah.
We have a question from Ron.
Yeah.
Are all teas and coffees dehydrating? Also important as one ages. Also more important as one ages.
Yeah. So as one ages, you definitely want a little bit more hydration for sure. Not all teas dehydrate. So good question. So green teas and black teas, they're the dehydrators. But rooibos, white teas, herbal teas do not. They don't also add to your water count unless, depending on how long you leave the tea bag in there. If you're really just kind of in and out for flavor, then you're okay. But if you're leaving the tea bag in there for a long time and getting extra, like just so that it's really, really strong, then that no longer counts for your water intake.
Okay. Oh, I forgot what I was going to ask. Shoot. Oh, what about decaf?
Decaf teas obviously will not dehydrate you either, generally, because it is the caffeine that mainly does that. My concerns of decaf are a little bit different because then they take some of the benefits that may also be there from the tea. But yeah, it won't take away from a hydration standpoint. It doesn't do that.
Okay.
Decaf, yeah.
So what would be better alternatives for aluminum foil?
Unfortunately, we don't have that. I just use glass to offset some of the aluminum foil, unfortunately. Yeah, we just don't have a lot. And again, if you are using aluminum foil, there's a little tricks and things that will be in the info sheet that I will be submitting to you guys so that people will have that. That will help pull out some of those heavy metals that are in the system.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. We can't prevent all toxicities from entering our body. All we can do is just make sure we are as efficient as possible to removing them out.
Right. Pat suggests parchment paper.
Sure enough, yeah. I've used parchment paper before, and for some reason, each time it catches on fire. So I don't use.
You know, and I've had it come close to doing that. So I think it depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, so that's why I don't usually recommend that, but.
And I also learned that wax paper is not the same as parchment paper.
Yeah, I also learned that actually the hard way as well. Reducing computer time. Our world, especially nowadays, as we are all on Zoom now, we're using our technology a lot more, which may put us in positions that will cut off our nerves. This motion particularly, I can feel it personally that my fingers will get numb after a certain amount of time. And it's just because the muscles around there are getting really tight, and it is that repetitive motion over and over again. So you definitely want to make sure that as much as you can, reduce that computer time. The other part is also EMFs, right? The radiation from your, now with wireless, every laptop is wireless, our cell phones are wireless. That is always going to stimulate your nervous system as well. So you definitely want to keep it as far as away as possible when you're not using it, and try to reduce as much. I get it. Some people have to work with their laptops all the time. But if you can reduce it as much as possible, that'd be great.
Are they ramping up studies on the EMF? Because you hear more and more about it, but. Yeah,
they are. In fact, oddly enough, there was some places that actually were now testing 6G, which is beyond me why we're even that, because we haven't even got to the 5G level of everything being converted over. And then you can actually measure the radiation. It's being held in the water. So you can actually measure the radiation now that's coming from
5G, is that what you said?
6G. Yeah, so you can measure it. It's to the point where you can actually get to that, where they're measuring it. Whereas 5G is still under the radar, They're still low enough frequencies that you're not getting it, but 6G is definitely leading to ionization.
Okay. Marco is asking what EMF stands for, and I can't.
Oh, sorry. Electromagnetic forces. Realistically, I should be calling it EMR, electromagnetic radiation. Sorry. So, alternating hot and cold showers. One of the things, the question on lymphatics, this is one of the ways to help with lymphatic system movement, but also repair circulation and chronic conditions of pain, right? So healing. After about 2 to 3 weeks, if you're still suffering from the same sort of ache and pain, this is one way to help speed up that healing. Not my favorite thing by any means. I do not like to do this, but I know patients who do and they love it. So you would normally take a shower as you would, and then at the end, you would go to cold for about 30 seconds. I'm assuming everyone's taking a hot shower. And then you're back to hot for 2 minutes, back to cold for 30 seconds, and you're doing this at least 3 times. I get patients to more count to 30 versus actually measuring 30 seconds. And I don't really care how fast they count as long as they don't skip numbers. You also get to control how cold it gets. The bigger the contrast, the more effect you're going to get. The more alternations, the more effect you're going to get, and the more speeding. I have many patients who actually feel a lot better with doing that, especially if they're just doing their feet. So those with periphery neuropathy, if they just put their limbs in and alternate like that versus their whole body, they get actually a lot of benefit from that too, especially when it comes to swelling. Stretches, exercises, and movement. You want to make sure you get that blood flowing. More circulations mean especially more nutrients into the area, which leads to better maintenance. Regularly stretch. Again, we're sitting at our computers quite often now, especially with the Zoom age that's occurred. So just moving up and getting around, moving your limbs, that will help strengthen up things. And use, right? Like if you're right-handed, use your left hand just that little bit more, especially for the stuff that's not really that heavy, not that important. So opening the doors to your car, opening the door overall. So sort of the less dexterous motions, you can definitely use your other hand so that it's a well-built, more balanced attack. And then strengthening. A lot of patients that I see, their muscles are just not strong enough and you're straining. And then that straining leads to more pinched nerves, causing some of that numbness and tingling. So we definitely want to make sure that that's not the case. And again, I'm not looking for a lot of time, right? We're talking about minutes. You can give me a minute or two every hour, just for sure.
So I'm sorry to backtrack on you again, but I think this is funny. Roxanne asks, please define cold shower.
So a cold shower is just a little bit cooler than what you're normally would used to. You can definitely turn the, as long as it's cooler than what you're normally used to, that's cold. I mean, you could definitely turn off all the hot water and just have it really, really cold that way. But usually if you have the lever one, I just kind of go to somewhere in the middle there, or basically how much you can tolerate is what I would probably say, but as long as it's cooler.
Okay, so yeah, maybe that was my mistake, because I turned the hot water completely off, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, no, you get to control how cold you want to make it, especially at the beginning. Don't go all the way. You don't have to go full blast.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, then I probably would get no patients doing it. So, so here's some of the nutritional advice that I give in this, mainly, especially if you haven't seen me. As you see me, then it gets a little bit more specific. Biggest part is this: we don't get our veggies in, right? So making sure you're getting your veggies, and I'm talking about essentially colors of the rainbow is what we aim for. So if you get the colors of the rainbow into your diet and half your plate, so I'm asking for half your plate being vegetables, that will give you a lot. We are getting carried away with a lot of diets, with keto and Truong diet and paleo and intermittent fasting. Those may not necessarily be right for you because the repairs need to be made And if you're not getting those nutrients in, you're not going to repair. And the diet that we always, and it's funny, after being 11 years in practice now, we always go back to the Mediterranean diet, which is a very much well-balanced diet. Just getting a lot of vegetables in, getting your proteins. We'd still limit carbs in that sense, but you're still getting some of that in. But we also find that people skip meals too. And skipping meals, again, not the ideal. When you're skipping meals like that, what you're doing is you're teaching your body that, one, digestion becomes a factor. You may not be digesting your food all the way, and then causing some problems that way. But again, you're just not getting the nutrients in. We've gotten now that 3 square meals, and we get back to it all the time. 3 square meals is where we usually end up going back to. Mentioned before, B vitamins are important. Eating organic, I advocate that quite a bit. I know it's easier to get the organic label, but at least it's something. But there are ways to clean things so that you don't. I get organic is quite expensive. The one thing I do recommend organic, and it's for your coffee drink, for those who are coffee drinkers, that is the one thing that I do ask for organic. Coffee is one of the most sprayed items on the planet with pesticides, herbicides, those kinds of things. Organic coffee, yes, they do it, but just not as much. And those herbicides, pesticides definitely can bind to those nerve endings. So you definitely, one of those things where you definitely want to make sure that you're doing organic as much as you can. And then less sugars all around. Again, that's just from an anti-inflammatory standpoint, damaging standpoint, the acidity that sugars can cause.
Okay, so Tanya is asking, shouldn't people with peripheral neuropathy avoid gluten and dairy as they're both inflammatory?
Correct. So the 3 criteria that I have in general with my patients, that is a basic guideline, is no gluten, no dairy, no refined or processed sugars. And that's just kind of the easy overview. The reason being is, yes, gluten can cause, and gluten has shown to bind to the nervous system for sure. It's what allows for that good feeling. The dairy, what we find is actually because of the mucus buildup, and we just don't have the processes to digest that dairy. We don't have the ability to digest cow's milk all the way. Cows have 4 stomachs, we have 1. We don't have the enzymes to break it down. So it's inflammatory that way. And in fact, I see with kids all the time, if they're on dairy, they get night terrors and they get overstimulated with dairy. So that's definitely one that I see all the time, consistently. Okay. Grounding. So get grounded. Touching the ground with bare skin actually is one of the easiest ways to offset some of the EMR or EMFs. Not a lot of time. Don't need a lot. 5 to 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking for. So that's why gardening, other than the joint pain that may come from just sitting and crouching over a lot, is actually quite calming, and that's part of the reason why. So just bare skin, even if it's soil in the plants in-house as well. Obviously in our winter, it's really, really hard to touch the ground and probably don't want to, but so even just plants inside your house will help you ground that way. And that will help offset. You just even think about the grounding wire in your electronics, right? That's what it does. It's to help kind of offset some of the buildup.
So our past president actually has, oh gosh, I probably shouldn't even have brought this up, but basically something that she wears at night that covers her head, and it's to block the EMF.
Okay.
I think she got it out of Australia.
Yeah. So the clinic we have things that will help block the EMFs too. We have that, there's now grounding sheets that you can get that will also, where you just hook up the 3rd cord, and funny enough, the prototype for that was a metal rod, wire, sleeping on this metal sheet and hooked up, and that rod would be hooked to the ground. So you would have this wire sticking out your home and into the ground, and that was the prototype for that. They've become a little bit more sophisticated than that. Deep breathing, super important. Who knew that air was actually vital for life? And we just don't do enough. We do a lot of shallow breathing in our everyday lives, and we don't breathe enough. Oxygen, I cannot tell you, oxygen is so, so important in just a lot of functionalities, oxygen, those kind of things, getting the energy in, but just overall, just calming the mind, right? So calming the brain, calming the nervous system, you can calm it down, then that wear and tear, and then the body can heal itself, right? It buys it time to heal itself. So inhaling for the count of 5, holding for the count of 5, and then exhaling for the count of 5 is what I use. Belly breathing, one of the easiest ways to belly breathe and to see if you're belly breathing is as you have your fingers barely touching at the top of your stomach. Inhale, they should separate. Exhale, they should touch. It's not obviously exaggerated it a little bit, but it's not that much. But then that's not when you know you're actually breathing and inhaling or belly breathing for sure. But as long as you're getting the breath in, that is going to be very important.
So yeah, one of the previous doctors that we had on told us that for the nerves to keep at their healthiest, they need 3 things, and that's oxygen, good nutrition, and stimulation. And so you basically covered all 3. But yeah, the deep breathing, it helps in so many ways. So many ways.
Well, and it's funny. So one of the things I talk to about my patients who are trying to quit smoking and why they're having such a difficult time is because it's one of the things that they actually is, for a break, it's a finite time, right? It's a very short break that you can take. It helps you unwind, never mind the nicotine and stuff that's actually in the cigarettes and the chemicals, but it actually forces you to breathe. Like, it's one of the things, yes, you're breathing in all these other things, but at the end of the day, it causes you to breathe. And so that's part of the unwinding part of it and helping you calm down. And there's just not many things that are out there that give you kind of all those factors involved.
Right.